in Shamut chapter 16, we see that there was an expectation of the people. Now they're in the wilderness, and there's something else that we must also pay attention to in this passage. Let me ask the question. In Shamut, Exodus chapter 16, was Yasharal being governed by someone, or were they being governed by Yahuah? No, they weren't being governed by anyone, right? They were being governed by Yahuah, right? That's important. Okay, that's important. All right, they were being governed by Yahuah. Now, when Yasharal is being governed by Yahuah, and this is something that we're going to see later as we study the scriptures concerning Shabbat. When Yasharal is being governed by Yahuah, there are absolutely no reservations concerning his expectation of his people to keep his appointed times and his feast. We will find in the scriptures that when Yasharal is being governed by Yahuah, there are absolutely no reservations concerning his expectation for us to keep his appointed times and his feast. However, let me ask this other question. When we find Yasharal in captivity, for example, when the people of Yasharal were in Mitzrayim and they wanted to worship Yahuah, what was the request made to Pharaoh? The scripture tells us to study line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, rightly applying the word of truth. The request was, let my people go, and there was a reason. What was the reason for the request? He gave the reason. He said, let my people go. This was what Yahuah told him to tell Pharaoh. He said, let my people go so that we can go into the wilderness and worship. Right? Yes. Let my people go so that we can go into the wilderness and worship. Wait. According to the Christian doctrine, you see, we are still affected by Christian doctrine, because a lot of people out there teaching stuff, they're teaching about the feast, and they're teaching about Shabbat, and they're teaching about this, and they're teaching about that, and they don't realize that they're still being affected by Christian doctrine. So how many people do you know that are out there teaching that we can absolutely do everything in Torah on the Pharaoh? Are we living on the Pharaoh? Let me ask this, family. Are we living on the Pharaoh currently? Are we living on the Pharaoh? Yes, we are. We are living on the Pharaoh. We are living on the Pharaoh. Now, the example that Yahuah gave us every time. Okay, let's take one more example. Maybe somebody might say, oh, you're using one scripture to establish nonsense. Let's take one more example. How about the prophet Nehemiah, who they call Nehemiah? What was his situation? What exactly was his situation? Was he in captivity? His life story, what was that about? Yasharal and those that were with him. All right, let me just say it. Let me just say it. So here's another example. We had Nehemiah, right? Nehemiah was a wine taster for the king. Who was it? Xerxes? Even though that's not his proper name, I'm just going with the Yiddish stuff. But he was a wine tester for the king. And Yahuah spoke to him. Yahuah put in him a desire to seek him. He put in him a desire to turn the heart of his people back to Yahuah. Now, what was his request to the king, family? What was Nehemiah or Nehemiah's request to the king? Did he request from the king that, you know what, king? Allow us to set up shop in your country and let us rebuild the Haykal right here so we can worship Yahuah? Was that his request to the king? Or did he seek favor from the king to say, you know what? Will you allow us to go back and rebuild the walls of Yerushalayim, rebuild the Haykal, and worship Yahuah in a set-apart place? Is that what he did? Which one did he do? Did he ask for a request to set apart worship in a defiled place, or did he request to go to the set-apart place and reestablish worship? The latter, right? The latter. That's the same thing we find in the book of Shamut, from Shamut chapter 5, right? The same thing we find. There's a reason for this, family. Now, remember the phrase that I talked about earlier, where Yahuah says, when you come into the land, or something like that? That phrase, we're going back to that phrase, okay? We're going back to that phrase. There is a reason why Yahuwah uses that phrase. And the true prophets of Yahuwah understood the reasoning. So when they went before their oppressors, they didn't ask the oppressor for permission to worship in their land. They asked the oppressor to let them go so that they can go and worship Yahuwah where they are being ruled and governed by Yahuwah and by the people that Yahuwah has established to rule over his people, to lead his people. Now, I don't want to use the terminology rule over concerning those that Yahuwah has established, but for those that Yahuwah has chosen to lead his people. You see, he put them in a neutral place, not under the hand of the oppressor. We must understand that, because if we don't understand that, we will misrepresent the truths of Yahuwah concerning everything in the scripture. A whole lot of people, you have people so twisted they call America the promised land. I hear people who are supposed to be people of Yasharal saying that nonsense. What kind of madness is this? You see, that's an example of zeal without knowledge. How do we get knowledge? How do we get knowledge? By committing ourselves to seeking for Yahuwah with our whole heart. Now, how do we seek for Yahuwah with our whole heart? Where do we look for him? Is it a situation where he's trying to play peekaboo from behind the closet door? No. We seek for him in his word. We seek for him in the scriptures. And if we're going to seek for him in our whole heart, then we've got to allow context to give understanding of his expectation. We have got to allow context to give an understanding of his expectation.